I finished my Denver project 3 days ahead of schedule. After 3 long weeks away from Sarah, I decided to surprise her by coming home early without calling first. I imagined the delight on her face when I walked through our front door unannounced. As I turned onto our street, excitement turned to confusion. Several unfamiliar cars lined the curb near our house. Our front yard was decorated with pink and blue balloons, and a banner hung across our porch, reading, "Welcome our little miracle." My heart pounded as I slowed the car. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments below, and if you are new here, hit that subscribe button to join our community of storytellers before we dive into what happened next. My career as a consulting engineer has always demanded a lot from me, especially in terms of travel. For 7 years, Sarah and I had built our marriage around this reality. She understood my frequent absences were part of the package, working her own demanding schedule. As a pediatric nurse at the local children's hospital, we complemented each other well, both passionate about our careers while maintaining our connection despite the distance. Early in our marriage, we had lengthy discussions about starting a family. We both wanted children, but the timing never seemed right. My unpredictable schedule and her rotating shifts at the hospital made us question if we could provide the stability a child deserves. There were also financial considerations. I earned a good salary, but we had student loans to pay off and wanted to be completely debt-free before bringing a child into our lives. 2 years ago, we decided to try anyway. For 8 months, we hoped each test would bring good news. Sarah tracked her cycle meticulously, and we scheduled my work trips around her most fertile days. The disappointment each month wore on us both, but Sarah took it particularly hard. Then came the doctor's visit that changed everything. Sarah was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, which the doctor explained would make conception more difficult, though not impossible. The news hit Sarah hard. She put on a brave face, but I could see the pain behind her smile when we were around friends with children. We decided to put family planning on hold indefinitely. I threw myself into work, and Sarah picked up extra shifts at the hospital. Over the past few months, our communication had become increasingly strained. My company landed a major contract that required extensive travel, and I found myself home only 4 or 5 days a month. Our conversations became briefer, more practical. "How are you? Fine? Did you pay the electric bill? Yes. When will you be home Sunday night? I love you. Love you too." The emotional depth we once shared seemed to be fading, replaced by logistical check-ins. The Denver project was supposed to be my last major travel commitment for a while. It was a massive infrastructure assessment that typically takes a full month. But I pushed myself and my team hard to complete it early. I wanted to get home to Sarah and focus on rebuilding the connection that seemed to be slipping away from us. When we finished 3 days ahead of schedule, I immediately thought of surprising her rather than telling her about my early return. In the 7 years of our marriage, I had never been able to surprise her like this, always calling ahead to coordinate schedules. On the way home from the airport, I stopped to buy a bouquet of lilies, her favorite flowers. I also picked up a small jewelry box containing a silver bracelet I had specially made, engraved with the coordinates of the spot where we first met, at a mutual friend's barbecue. I was so excited to see her face when I walked through the door, unexpectedly gifts in hand. As I drove through our neighborhood, I pictured our reunion. Maybe we would order takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. Perhaps we would open a bottle of wine and really talk for the first time in months. I even thought that maybe, just maybe, we could revisit the conversation about our family plans. I had been researching adoption agencies in my spare time, wondering if Sarah might be open to building our family in a different way than we had originally planned. These thoughts swirled through my mind as I approached our house, completely unprepared for what I was about to discover. I decided to park my car a block away, to maintain the element of surprise. Walking toward our house, a 2-story craftsman-style home we had purchased 3 years ago, I noticed more details that added to my growing confusion. There were at least 6 cars parked nearby, including her sister Jenna's red SUV and her mother's silver sedan. The decorations were more elaborate than I had initially realized. In addition to the balloons and welcome banner, there was a wooden stork cutout planted in our front lawn and what appeared to be baby-themed streamers hanging from our porch railing. As I got closer, I could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and conversation coming from inside. Through the front windows, I could see movement, though, not clearly enough to make out individuals. Next to our front door sat a stack of gift bags in pastel colors, some decorated with cartoon storks and others with baby bottles and rattles. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Had Sarah adopted a baby without telling me? Was she throwing a shower for one of her friends? But then, why would the banner be hung on our house, welcoming our little miracle? I recognized several of the vehicles. Besides her sister's and mother's cars, I spotted her best friend Tara's blue compact and her cousin Amy's minivan. These were all people who were close to Sarah. People who would know important details of our lives. People who would know if Sarah was expecting a child. Instead of going to the front door, I found myself circling around to the side of the house. A strange feeling had come over me, a sense that I should not simply walk in and announce myself. Through the dining room window, I could see them all gathered. 10 or 12 women. Some seated around our extended dining table, others standing with plates of food and glasses of what looked like pink lemonade. No alcohol, I noticed. There were presents piled high on our sideboard, all wrapped in baby-themed paper. And then I saw Sarah. She was wearing a flowing white sundress I had never seen before, her brown hair swept up elegantly. She was smiling, radiant in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. She was holding up a tiny onesie to admiring coos from the gathered women. Her mother was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, and her sister had an arm draped proudly around Sarah's shoulders. It was unmistakably a baby shower. For Sarah, my Sarah, who I had spoken with just yesterday, and who had mentioned nothing about a baby or an adoption or any major life change. Sarah, who knew I was coming home in 3 days. Sarah, whose stomach showed no signs of pregnancy but who was clearly celebrating the imminent arrival of a child. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The gifts in my hands suddenly seemed ridiculous, pathetic even. The hopeful plans I had been forming on the drive home evaporated, replaced by a toxic swirl of confusion, betrayal, anger, and hurt. I stumbled back from the window, my mind frantically connecting dots into the most painful pattern possible. If Sarah was expecting a baby and had told everyone but me, there was only one explanation that made sense. The baby wasn't mine. Biologically, that would be nearly impossible given my travel schedule. Had she been unfaithful? Had she been living a complete double life while I was on the road? Was everyone in that room complicit? Keeping her secret from the clueless husband, I nearly marched up to the front door right then, ready to confront the roomful of conspirators. Some small voice of reason held me back. Creating a scene would only make things worse, would only add public humiliation to private betrayal. Instead, I retreated to my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. Once inside the familiar safety of my vehicle, I called the one person I thought might have answers but wouldn't be at that shower. James had been my best friend since college and had actually introduced me to Sarah. He picked up on the third ring. "Rick, aren't you still in Denver? I came home early." "James, there's something happening at my house. Sarah is having a baby shower. There are decorations everywhere. A banner about welcoming our miracle." The line went silent for a moment. "And you didn't know about this?" "No, I had no idea. We haven't even been trying." "She can't be pregnant, James. It's not possible." Another pause. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but there has to be an explanation. Sarah isn't the type to cheat. You know that. There must be something else happening here." "Like what?" "What possible explanation could there be for my wife celebrating a baby with everyone we know except me?" "I don't know, but before you do anything crazy, take some time to calm down. Promise me you won't confront her while you're this upset. Wait until the guests leave, then talk to her. There has to be a reasonable explanation." I wasn't convinced, but I agreed to wait. For the next 3 hours, I sat in my car down the block, alternating between numbness and waves of anger and betrayal. I watched as the first guests began to leave, carrying leftover cake and decorations to their cars. Each woman hugged Sarah at the door, many with tears and excited whispers. Her mother and sister stayed the longest, helping to clean up. By 6 o'clock, their cars too had pulled away, leaving Sarah alone in a house full of baby gifts. I gave it another 30 minutes, trying to calm my racing heart and organize my thoughts. Then, clutching the now wilted lilies and the small jewelry box, I walked up to my own front door like a stranger. I used my key to enter, hearing Sarah humming to herself from somewhere inside. The sound of it, so carefree and happy, made my heart twist painfully in my chest. The entryway was still festooned with streamers and a few stray balloons. A stack of baby gifts had been neatly arranged on our living room sofa. "Mom, did you forget something?" Sarah called from down the hallway, her voice light. I didn't answer, my throat too tight for words. I stood frozen in the entryway, the sad bouquet hanging limply from my hand. Sarah appeared from the direction of our spare bedroom, stopping abruptly when she saw me. The color drained from her face. "Rick, what are you? How are you home? You weren't supposed to be back until Friday." Her eyes darted nervously to the baby gifts and back to my face. "Surprise," I said flatly, holding up the wilted flowers. "I finished early. Thought I'd surprise my wife. Looks like I'm the one who got surprised instead." Sarah's hand went to her throat, her eyes wide. "I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. Really. Because it looks like you're having a baby. And told everyone but me. It looks like you've been living a whole separate life behind my back." My voice cracked embarrassingly on the last word. "No, Rick, that's not it at all." Tears had begun forming in her eyes. "Please come with me. I need to show you something." Still clutching my pathetic gifts, I followed her woodenly down the hallway toward our spare bedroom. She paused at the door, taking a deep breath before pushing it open. The room had been transformed. The desk and exercise equipment that had previously occupied the space were gone, replaced by a white crib and changing table. A rocking chair sat in the corner, a soft yellow blanket draped over one arm. The walls, previously a neutral gray, now featured a border of gentle woodland animals. "What is this?" I asked, though the answer was obvious. It was a nursery in my house that I knew nothing about. Sarah reached for a folder that sat on the dresser and handed it to me with trembling hands. "I was going to call you tonight. Everything just got finalized yesterday. I was waiting until I was absolutely sure before telling you because I couldn't bear another disappointment." I opened the folder, still not understanding. Inside was a stack of official-looking documents. On top was a letter from something called Bright Futures Adoption Agency, congratulating Sarah and Rick Thompson on being selected as adoptive parents for a newborn baby girl. My legs suddenly felt weak. I sank down onto the rocking chair, documents clutched in my hands. "Adoption. You've been working with an adoption agency. For how long?" Sarah knelt in front of me, her face earnest. 6 months. After my last appointment with Dr. Brennan, when he said my condition had worsened, I contacted them. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to get your hopes up. The waiting lists are so long, and there was no guarantee we would be chosen. I flipped through more documents, seeing our home study, character references, financial statements. "You did all of this without telling me." Sarah nodded, tears now flowing freely. "I was going to tell you so many times, but you were so busy with the Denver project. And I was afraid, Rick. Afraid you would say no. Afraid you had changed your mind about wanting a family." "Why would you think that?" "Because we stopped talking about it. After my diagnosis, you never brought it up again. You took more travel assignments. I thought maybe you were relieved that we couldn't have children easily, that you preferred our life the way it was." I stared at her in disbelief. "I thought you were the one who wanted to stop trying. You seemed so devastated by the diagnosis. I didn't want to keep hurting you by bringing it up." "Oh, Rick." Sarah wiped at her tears. "I never stopped wanting a family with you. Never." She pulled another document from the folder, a handwritten letter. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from the agency. A 19-year-old college student had chosen us from the prospective parent profiles. She's due to give birth any day now, and she wants us to adopt her baby girl. I read the letter from the birth mother, a thoughtful note explaining why she had chosen us and her hopes for her daughter's future. When did all this happen? The shower, the nursery? It all came together very quickly. Once we received preliminary approval last week, Jenna insisted on throwing a shower. Mom and I set up the nursery yesterday. The baby could be here as soon as this weekend, Rick. Our daughter. Her voice caught on the word daughter. I was going to call you tonight after I had processed everything myself. I needed to be sure it was really happening before I told you. I looked again at the documents in my hand, then at the nursery around me, trying to reconcile my earlier suspicions with this unexpected reality. So, there's a baby. A real baby. That's going to be ours. In days. Sarah nodded, watching my face anxiously. Are you angry? I know I should have told you sooner. Was I angry? Yes, a part of me was furious that such a massive life decision had been made without my input or knowledge. But another part of me, a part that was growing stronger by the minute, was filled with a different emotion entirely. Wonder. A baby girl. Our daughter. Why didn't you trust me enough to include me in this? I asked, my voice softer now. Sarah sat back on her heels, looking down at her hands. I was afraid of getting hurt again. Every month when we were watching you try to hide your own disappointment made it worse somehow. And lately, with all your travel, I worried that your career would always come first, that you might resist the idea of adoption. So instead, you went behind my back. The hurt in my voice was evident. I convinced myself I was protecting both of us from disappointment. The approval process is so uncertain. If we weren't chosen, you would never have to know we had even tried. She looked up at me, her expression pleading. I was going to call you tonight, Rick. I swear. I wanted to tell you in person. But when we got the final confirmation yesterday, everything happened so fast. I looked again at the letter from the birth mother. She specifically chose us. From all the possible parents, Sarah nodded, a small smile breaking through her tears. She said she loved our story. How we met at a charity baseball game, our work ethics, our values. She wants her daughter to grow up with parents like us. I tried to imagine it. Coming home from work to not just Sarah, but a little girl. Bedtime stories. First steps. School plays. A child calling me dad. It was overwhelming. Terrifying. Amazing. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Sarah said quietly. I was wrong to keep this from you. If you're not ready, if this isn't what you want anymore, I need to know now. There's still time to. I cut her off by pulling her into my arms. No. Don't even say it. This is happening. We're going to be parents. The next few hours were a blur of emotion and conversation. My initial anger gave way to understanding, then excitement, as Sarah showed me all the preparations she had made. We went through the baby gifts together, tiny clothes, soft blankets, practical items like bottles and diapers. Her sister had given us a state-of-the-art baby monitor. Her mother had hand-quilted a beautiful blanket with our initials intertwined in one corner. We talked late into the night, really talked for the first time in months. I shared my hurt at being excluded from such a monumental decision, and Sarah acknowledged how fear had driven her to keep secrets. Instead of communicating openly, I admitted how I had thrown myself into work as a way of avoiding the pain of our infertility struggles, unintentionally creating more distance between us. I thought you had given up on having a family, Sarah confessed, as we sat together in the rocking chair, her head on my shoulder. I thought you needed space from the whole idea, I replied. I was researching adoption agencies myself, but I was waiting for the right moment to bring it up. We both laughed at the irony, the tension of the day finally breaking. We promised each other to communicate better moving forward, recognizing that parenthood would bring challenges requiring us to be true partners. The next morning, Sarah received the call. The birth mother had gone into labor. Our daughter was born at 2:17 in the afternoon, a healthy 7 pounds 3 ounces. We would be able to bring her home in 3 days. Those 3 days were a frenzy of preparation and paperwork. I called my boss to arrange for family leave. We finalized the last details of the adoption. We chose a name together, Emma Grace Thompson. Nothing could have prepared me for the moment they placed her in my arms for the first time. So tiny with delicate features and a dusting of dark hair. As I held our daughter, all the hurt and confusion of the past melted away. In its place was a love so fierce and protective it took my breath away. The first weeks were exhausting and beautiful. I learned to change diapers to heat bottles to the perfect temperature to soothe Emma when she cried at 3 in the morning. Sarah was a natural, her experience as a pediatric nurse, giving her confidence. I lacked at first, but soon we found our rhythm as parents, trading off duties and supporting each other through the sleepless nights. I rearranged my work schedule to be home, more negotiating remote work options, and turning down travel assignments. Some of my colleagues didn't understand, but I no longer cared. Nothing was worth missing these precious early days with my family. As Emma grew from a newborn to an infant, cooing and smiling and reaching for us, I often thought back to that moment of coming home early, seeing the balloons and banner, and assuming the worst. How close I had come to letting anger and misunderstanding poison what would become the greatest blessing of my life. The path to parenthood was nothing like what I had imagined. There was no pregnancy announcement, no watching Sarah's belly grow, no biological connection to our child. Instead, there was paperwork and home studies, and a brave young woman making the most difficult choice of her life. There were secrets and miscommunications that nearly derailed everything. But when I look at Emma sleeping peacefully in the nursery that once shocked me to my core, I know with complete certainty that this was always how our family was meant to be formed. Sometimes life's biggest surprises become its greatest blessings. Sometimes the most painful moments lead to unimaginable joy. Have you ever experienced an unexpected life change that turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to you? Share your story in the comments below. If our journey to parenthood touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about life's unexpected turns. And if you know someone who might be struggling with building their family, share this with them as a reminder that there are many paths to parenthood, and sometimes the one you never anticipated is exactly where you were meant to be all along. Thank you for listening, and may your own surprises in life lead to beautiful new beginnings.